welcome to the channel. I hope you're all well. Today we're going to tie a wet fly called the Black Pennel. Now the Black Pennel is one of those classic English black flies and very popular on the lochs and rivers of Scotland. And this fly was originally tied in the 19th century by a wealthy English fly fisherman who was titled Her Majesty's Inspector of Sea Fisheries. He was also a prolific author and penned many books, including Fishing the Modern Practical Angler, The Sporting Fish of Great Britain, and interestingly, The Life of Sitting Bull. His name was Henry Cholmondeley Pennel. Now when the fly was fished on lochs, it was normally fished in a team of flies, and on the river it's fished in the traditional way of down and across, letting the fly swing around at the end of the cast. It's likely that the original tying used a black cock hackle, which is a bit different to most wet flies, and certainly for modern tyings we would use a softer hen hackle. Now let's get into the tying. In the vise I have a size 12 nymph hook. Now this fly is best fished on a 12 or a 14, and they are the most popular sizes. And I'm going to be tying with black floss. So I'm just going to tie on the floss a little bit back from the eye and trim up the excess. And the tail is from the collar of a golden pheasant. Now this particular feather I think is probably just a little bit too long in the fibre, so I'm going to go with this. Now whether you use the second band for showing at the tail or you don't is entirely up to you, and you don't want the tail longer than the length of the fly. So I'm just going to select some fibres and cut them off. And we're going to tie those in. Like so. Just going to pull those back just a little and trim up the excess fibres. Now for the rib I'm going to use a flat tinsel, a metallic tinsel, and I'm going to tie this in at the same time in the hope of keeping the body as flat as possible or as unified as possible. As we go down to the rear of the fly, don't go around the bend or too close to the bend, that's far enough. Just put that in the spring, and I'm going to trim up the excess and wind down the excess tinsel and the fibres from the tail. Right, I'm just going to build up the body just a little. Like so. And wind on the rib. Now the amount of turns, probably 3 or 4, depending upon the size of the hook, the width of your tinsel. And tie off the tinsel. And trim up the excess. I'm just going to flatten that down just a little and tidy up. Like so. Now, as I said, there is some view about whether it should be a cock hackle or a hen hackle. Now, if it's a cock hackle, it will look something like that, although that is a size 14. But I'm going to use a hen hackle, and it's just a standard dyed hen. I've taken off a feather, and I'm going to trim up the fibers and the flue from the bottom of the feather. Just trim that up, and we end up with something like that. Now what I'm going to do is pull back the fibers from the tip, from the point, and I'm going to tie in the feather by the point. And trim up the excess. Now the amount of turns will depend upon the size of the feather, the size of the fly, but certainly 2 or 3. Remember to try and pull back these fibers as you're turning on the hackle. Just 2, 3, I think that will be enough for this fly, and tie off the hackle. And trim up the stem. And tie off the fly. And trim up the floss. Now I am going to put just a little bit of varnish onto the head, just to seal the knot and to create a nice head on the fly. Give that a zap. Let's see how this sits. This will look totally different when it's been fished. You can see one errant fibre there sticking up, which we don't really want. So we'll get rid of that. And there you have the finished fly. The hackle should go back into the gape of the hook, as this one does. It's a really, really good fly for wet fly fishing. And as I said, whether it be a loch or a river, it has a lot of history and a lot of success. Thanks very much for viewing. I hope you enjoyed the time. Don't hesitate to give it a thumbs up, and do share it if you wish. And I will see you in the next video. Don't forget to become a subscriber. Bye.